Alright everybody, here's my better late than never video of the best albums of 2012 for metal. And this would have been sooner, but I broke my camera and had to get a new one, so now at least you get to enjoy my mad ramblings in HD. Brilliant. Anyway, I think 2012 was a pretty good year for metal, and I'm going to show you 5 albums that prove that. I think there's been quite a few albums that I didn't get this year. Yep, there they are. And I probably should have, but I mainly concentrated on getting old music, or music not from this year. Yeah, these are 5 of the best from this year, so enjoy. Okay, so the first album that I'm going to talk about now is Candlemass, Psalms of the Dead. This is apparently supposed to be their last album, and they're just going to concentrate on touring. I hope not, because in my opinion they've still got quite a lot of mileage left in them. Candlemass is a Swedish doom metal band, been putting out material since the early 80s, and I don't think they've really put a foot wrong in that whole time. I've even got their strange little EP of Swedish folk songs done. If you've not heard that, then go check that out. Anyway, this album, Psalms of the Dead, it's different than some of their material in that it features more keyboards. They've not done that in quite a while. Keyboards are actually in a sort of traditional heavy metal 70s rock style, like, you know, Deep Purple, that sort of thing. And one of my favourite songs on this album, actually, that illustrates that point is Siren Song. This song has keyboards like Gypsy by Uriah Heep, and it has a bit of Child in Time at the end of it. The early 70s rock feel is there. If you like that sort of thing, you should definitely check this album out. Dancing in the Temple of the Mad Queen Bee is sort of Dio era rainbow feel, again with the keyboards and fantasy based lyrics, which I personally love, that sort of thing. These 2 songs are actually a lot faster than what you'd expect from a doom metal band, which can go from Black Sabbath early albums pace to, you know, Funeral Drone Doom. That's just ridiculous. That's a bit beyond me at the moment. Yeah, this is quite a lot of good Sabbath and especially Dio influence. The next song, Light of Thebe, is a sort of Egyptian themed song. It's got sort of Eastern melodies in it. It's kind of like a slow version of Gates of Babylon. Not melody really wise, but sort of just the general vibe you get of it if you've heard Gates of Babylon by Rainbow. Just an Eastern feel. Again, sort of keyboards used to great effect on that one. The Prophet is another song that uses keyboards, but more in a traditional power metal type way. In the middle of it there's a guitar break and twin lead harmonized guitars, and the rest of the song has like a sort of fast, I guess you could say, Judas Priest riff, and there's a bit of doom at the end, doom metal slow stuff. That's about the only time they use keyboards in a modern kind of metal way, power metal way. The rest is again all 70s, but again very good. The rest of the songs are all pretty much Black Sabbath influence. Killing the Sun combines the riff from I think it was Country Girl and Iron Man, if you can just imagine them mixed together. Sound of Dying Demons, try not to think of I Am Iron Man when you first hear that. I'm not criticizing, I mean it's a really good song, but the Sabbath influence is clear, and all the better for it in my opinion. Quite a few songs make a use of the loud, quiet verse structure that's first found in Black Sabbath's self-titled song, which is basically the archetype for doom metal. Overall, this album's got a lot more variation than doom metal gets credit for. The final song, Black as Time, starts off with a sort of creepy narrated bit just about the end of a person's life, or just time counting down till death. I think it's like the death of the band as a recording artist. I've heard other people say that, and I think it's true. Narration on this track would be, I think, more effective if it didn't have a guy that sounded like Eric Idle, really. That's my only criticism. Get someone like Christopher Lee, then you're talking, but maybe Rhapsody's got dibs on him. Just to sum up this album, it's really good. Great thick doom metal guitar tone, Black Sabbath influence, but more modern sounding, but great 70s early metal vibe. The keyboards is a unique thing as well for Candlemass. I've not used them in a while, like I said. Again, the operatic vocals make this album very enjoyable. Rob Lowe's apparently left, the singer, and they've got a new guy in for touring purposes, but hopefully that inspires them to make some more music, because I think they've still got a lot of potential in them, because this album is one of the best I've heard all year. Very enjoyable. Well done, Candlemass. Please come back. The next album I'm going to do is Ensiferum, Unsung Heroes. And in case you haven't worked out by now, I'm just doing alphabetical order rather than order of preference, so we don't get bitching, trolling debates on YouTube comment sections, because I know how you guys are. Ooh. Anyway, Unsung Heroes by my good friends Ensiferum. Yeah, we hang out all the time. See? It's one of their most varied albums. Basically, you've got your traditional Ensiferum folk power metal, melodic death metal, you could say. They're the fast songs with your shredding guitar solos, gallop picking rhythms, and Petri kicking ass on growling vocals. Then there's, I guess you could say, folk influenced songs. The acoustics on this album, it's more prevalent than previous albums. Firstly, I've got to say my favourite song on this album is Pohjola. Is that how you pronounce it? It's about sort of a mythical land in Finnish mythology where the world tree is. I think similar to Yggdrasil in Norse mythology. I'm not up on Finnish folklore, so if anyone could help me out on that. But this is probably the most symphonic power metal type song on the album. It's got great choral backing vocals, use of keyboards. It's actually not that dissimilar to what Wintersun are doing on the Time album. The whole thing's in Finnish, so I can't really understand the lyrics, but nevertheless it's brilliant. A very interesting part of this album is Celestial Bond Part 1 and 2. It's basically telling this epic story from male and female perspectives. You've got the female version, which has brilliant vocals on it. When I first heard that, I thought, wow, Emmy can sing. That's the female keyboard player in Ensiferum. But no, they got guest vocalists in. Either way, it's great. Nice piano in it, and the male vocals, I think, are handled by Sammy, the bassist, on part 2, and that's got a nice acoustic section to it. A departure from what Ensiferum are often associated with, but I like it nonetheless. Passion Proof Power is the 17-minute epic closing song. You thought Wintersun were stretching it out this year. This song basically contains all the other musical elements of the album, sort of acoustic folk influence sections, then full-on melodeath with the screaming vocals, great guitar solos. It even drops out in the middle and you get like a sort of Nordic village scene. You just hear it and there's like chickens in the background and all that kind of stuff. Crazy. It just sums up the mood of the whole album in one very long song, and it doesn't feel like it's over long despite being 17 minutes. Can you believe that? And overall this album manages to be epic without being kind of overproduced, and the guitars take center stage at all times really, except when they are not present at all, with the piano and stuff like that. Lots of good guitar solos and lead riffs and anthemic choruses, like In My Sword I Trust. That's the first single off of it. Pretty much nothing bad to say about that album either. Ensiferum, Unsung Heroes, check it out if you haven't already. Okay, the next album was, I'm not gonna lie, the one that I was waiting for most out of all of these. That's Manowar, the Lord of Steel. This band, you're in two minds about it. Either they're basically a joke Spinal Tap band, or the greatest thing since, I don't know, Judas Priest, Zeppelin, everything. I'm in the second camp, but I can see why people would think the first. But musically, very good, I think. This album, there's two versions of it actually. The first was with a metal hammer. That's why it's called the Hammer Edition. And this is less produced than the final album. It's got quite a overpowering bass tone to it, which quite a lot of people were turned off by. It really didn't sound the best until you turned it really full on a home stereo system, which if you're getting it out of really bad laptop speakers, then it doesn't sound as good as it could. The songs on it obviously were classic manowar, but A few people just didn't like the production. Final edition, I think, fixes pretty much most of those production issues. The bass fuzz is it's dialed back a bit, and that really allows the bottom end of the album to be heard fully. You don't need to crank it as full as it can go, but obviously it's best because it's Manowar. The bass tone on this album, I don't know why I'm going on about this so much, but Joey DeMaio's playing, I love it. It's not as good as some of the previous albums, like Triumph of Steel, I think is the pinnacle of his bass tone on it, or even the re-recorded battle hymns. This takes a bit of getting used to, but once you do, there's some very good stuff in there. Now, the productions had more of the epic choir backing vocals and sort of symphonic elements like the last couple of Manowar albums have been associated with. It was quite stripped down in the initial edition of this album. Another thing that was absent from the first album, really, Eric Adams didn't do many high-pitched screams, which he's really famous for. Luckily, the second edition of the album, they basically fixed this. Songs like Manowar Ears and Annihilation open with epic screams. I love that. The song El Gringo was the first one that I think anyone heard of it. This was done for a movie. It's sort of a modern interpretation of a Western movie, I think. I've not seen it, I really should. The new version of it is longer, and you get a bonus guitar solo, which you do on quite a few of the songs actually. That's another thing that makes the second edition better. Born in a Grave is about vampires, but not in the wussy Twilight way, in the traditional myth way, as like they are the embodiment of human fears and just evil and darkness and all that good stuff. Righteous Glory is actually the only real Viking influenced song on the album. It's a epic ballad, which was one of the best on the Hammer edition, and I think they just made it even better on the final version. Yeah, brilliant chorus. It's up there with ones like Heart of Steel pretty much. There's general badassery like the title track The Lord of Steel and Annihilation, which actually features a pretty good bass groove in the style of Geezer Butler under the guitar solo as well. I think Touch the Sky and Manowar Ears are the two best songs on the album. Touch the Sky was one of my favourites to start off with, and they've made it even better on the final cut. Just after the first guitar solo, all the band just drops out and just Eric's singing over the sort of epic choral backing vocals. Hail, Kill and Die, that's the end song that's referencing a lot of their previous work, which they've done before, like Blood of the Kings, but they've done it again, and it doesn't actually feel contrived once you've got into it. And yes, they've got a bonus track called Kingdom of Steel on the final version, which is another sort of ballad type song. I think the best part of this song is the sort of intro. It's sort of classical, almost Greensleeves type feel to it. It could either be acoustic guitar, or it might even be Joey on the 8-string bass like he's done. In the past few albums they've had sort of power metal, just fast picking, but this is more in line with the sort of traditional 70s influenced rock riffs that they had in the sort of first album. Yeah, the metal elements obviously are still there too, but it's got more of an old school feel to it. I think partly this might be to do with Donny Hamzik coming back, the drummer on the first album. He might have influenced them to make more old school feeling songs. Obviously the production is very modern, but a lot of the riffs are old school. Actually, I forgot to mention the song Blacklist could come straight off of Into Glory Ride, which is never a bad thing, especially the bass intro. The song Expendables actually is inspired by the film Expendables, which was starring Sylvester Stallone, which I think keeps up with the tradition of them doing songs that could come off of Stallone films, like Shell Shock off Battle Hymns album could be on the soundtrack to Rambo. So yeah, that's keeping up with the tradition that they first started way back. Overall, I really like this album. I knew I would because fanboy, I'm gonna admit it. I think they've improved the production on the final edition, which you'd expect. It's great to hear more riffs, and Eric's vocals are really good on songs such as Touch the Sky. That's my favourite. It's also good to hear like a mixture of previous styles, all the good aspects of Manowar mixed together, so well done to them.